We're good.
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is December 16. Happy Thursday to you all. This is the first work group meeting of the Montgomery County Land Use, Transportation, and Public Safety meeting. I see all of my committee members are here. Thank you all for making the time, as well as we have some folks from the county. So since we have Senator Kramer on the line and the other two bill sponsors for the bills we're working on are committee members, I'm going to start with Senator Kramer. So the order will be MC 2222, MC 1822, and then MC 322. So a moment ago, before everyone was on and before we went live, we were chatting with the senator about an MOU between the county and the state regarding these speed cameras, and the senator was talking about the way the bill was drafted. Senator, I think you clarified that, but is there anything, since we saw this or we heard this bill hearing last night, I think it's pretty much fresh in everyone's minds. Is there anything else that you want to add to the presentation from last night before I turn it over to members for questions?
Madam Chair, thank you. I believe that it is hopefully still very fresh in everyone's mind, since it was not even 24 hours ago. But certainly, again, I welcome any questions, and I will turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. Well, actually, let me ask this before I go to the members. Is there anyone on the meeting that wants to weigh in on this bill? Either our lieutenant or the folks from the county? Anybody have input? Okay. Members? Questions?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Delegate Wilkins.
I just wanted to make sure, we did have this hearing just last night, but just to put it plainly, we're basically talking about putting a speed camera on the ICC.
Multiple.
Correct? Multiple. At least one. Multiple.
Yep.
Okay.
Way more. One between every single exit. So yes. Senator, I'm going to jump in for a minute. I'm sorry, did you have more, Delegate Wilkins?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, sorry. Senator, have there been, to your knowledge, many accidents on the ICC due to speeding?
You know what? I do not have those statistics with regard to accidents. I know that when we do have them, they can be very violent because of the speeds. And that's just personal experience, having witnessed some horrific aftermaths of accidents there. But a big part of this is, of course, public safety, but going well beyond that, it's quality of life for the communities that live along the Inter-County Connector route. Just a quick background for those of you who are not familiar with the area. The county allowed the area to become very heavily developed all along the master planned route for Maryland 200. That's why it became such a contentious subject when the decision was made to actually build the master planned infrastructure, because the growth had taken place, the infrastructure had not been put in, and now there were communities along the entirety of the Inter-County Connector that would be backing up to the highway. When the Maryland Highway Administration did their required sound studies, those studies were conducted at what was then the proposed speed limit, which was 55 miles per hour. And the fact of the matter is, and my colleagues in 19 and 14 and I learned, that every 5 miles per hour of increased speed dramatically increases the volume of noise that the communities are exposed to. The sound barriers that were put in place, and there are many communities that have none, were predicated upon those studies from, I guess, at least 30 years ago now. And so with the high speeds that are experienced on the road, it really makes it miserable for those residents that live along the intercounty connector to enjoy their homes, particularly going outside at all. And I have personally experienced it because I've been invited to visit those communities, and I've witnessed it, heard it. My colleagues in District 14 and I have very often met with large community groups that were either in 14 or 19 as they express their concern about the quality of life. So the goal here is, yes, public safety is a very important aspect of it, but so is quality of life in our effort to try to find a mechanism by which we can help manage the speeds on the intercounty connector. And I will quickly add that there was an article either yesterday or the day before in the Baltimore Sun about all the excitement in Baltimore about a speed camera program that will go into effect on I-83 because of all the problems they have had with highway speeding.
Right. Two more questions for you. One, it's more a statement. I live close to 495, and we get a lot of that, as a lot of noise from speeding and from trucks, which I don't think you get on the ICC. So noise, I understand, is a big issue. We're working on noise barriers as they widen 495. My other question for you, Senator, is that I believe there are 11 or 12 ramps going east, exit ramps, and then coming west, there are 8. So are you intending 20 speed cameras? What's your thought with this bill?
The thought is that between the exits in Montgomery County, that there be a speed camera placed, and that is to ensure that there is consistency in the effort to reduce the speed. I think we all realize that if there is a sporadic speed camera placed somewhere on a roadway, the tendency is for drivers to increase speed dramatically, then drop speed dramatically where they know the speed camera will be located. By ensuring that there is, so whatever the number, and I'm not sure which ones would fall within Montgomery County, the number of exits, and you may be very accurate in your representation as to the number. But the goal would be to ensure that there is a speed camera between each of the exit ramps.
Okay, so you mean both eastbound and westbound?
Eastbound and westbound.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you. Do other members have questions for the senator?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Delegate Wilkins.
Senator, thank you so much for bringing this bill. I think the quality of life and the safety issues are really important, and I do generally support it. I think it's a good bill and a great idea. My only question or concern is that it does seem like a lot of speed cameras at once. I'm wondering if you would be at all amenable to us figuring out, maybe working with traffic folks, maybe how we could accomplish the goals without adding potentially, 18 or 15 additional cameras.
Well, I think the goal here, as I stated, is to ensure a consistency of speed. Now, I think having a period of time where people are given the opportunity to learn that the speed cameras are there and to acclimate and to adjust to it. There's certainly, the goal here is not to be a kind of gotcha thing, which is why having them consistently throughout the ICC will hopefully communicate that maintain a safe and traffic speed that's reflective of the posted speed limit, and you won't have any issues. I will also remind the delegation that the speed cameras are calibrated so that you've got to be going, I think it's either above 12 or 12 miles above the speed limit before they're activated. So I think that, and it was interesting, I had this conversation with both Senator Rosapep and County Executive Elrich when in the early stages, and they both said their comments immediately to me were, if someone can't stay within 10 miles per hour of the posted speed limit, then yeah, let them get a $40 ticket in the mail, and maybe that will help them to do so. But I don't think it's the quantity of speed cameras that are an issue. And again, I don't know what that quantity will be. And my understanding from having spoken with the county and the drafter is that this is a private company that is contracted by our Montgomery County Police Department that manages the process. And I am confident that however many number of speed cameras are required to comply with the mandate in the bill, that they will be happy to do so, because my understanding also is that they get a percentage of the revenues. Again, that's the way it used to be. I'm not up to speed as to what the current standard is, but I know that used to be the case.
I appreciated your pun, Senator. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Delegate Gilchrist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So right now, we don't have any speed cameras on 495 or 270, do we?
Are you asking me that question, Delegate Gilchrist?
Well, I would think maybe somebody from the county or the police officer.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of at this point either.
And is there authority under current law to put them up now?
This is Lieutenant Jordan Stinsky from the county police. For Interstate 270 and Interstate 485, SHA would handle all that. And usually they put them in work zones. That's where they're usually found. We have not implemented anything, to my knowledge, on either of those roadways.
And on 200, does anyone have authority right now to put them up?
Based on what we've discussed internally, we don't believe we have that authority, but I'm still waiting to hear back a solid answer on that one, sir.
And so I'm sorry, did you say that on 495 and 270, you have authority to put them up in work zones?
Oh, no, I did not, sir. I just said SHA handles that. We have not, that's not our primary areas of responsibility. So SHA or MSP would handle those.
And so this bill would give authority. So this is completely a new authority to put up speed cameras on the ICC.
That is my understanding, yes. I don't have an expertise in this area. I'm trying to build up as much as I can, and I will be happy to get back to anybody who needs it. I'm just waiting to hear back from my folks here.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Gilchrist. Vice Chair Acevedo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Kramer, for bringing the bill and just really starting this discussion. I agree that certainly speeding is an issue. I guess to Delegate Gilchrist's point, or just following up on a point that he mentioned, it seems to me that Montgomery County would be the first jurisdiction really to put speed cameras on, and to me, the ICC is no different than 495, and we don't have cameras on 495. I guess for me, do we have data on collisions or speeding? I know it was mentioned earlier in the testimony, something about noise, and I know that that's not an issue on the ICC. So considering that, noise, and I would agree with that, is not particularly an issue on the ICC when it comes to speeding. I'd be curious to see the data if it exists on speeding and speeding collisions on the ICC, if any. I agree that speeding is an issue. And, I would think that's the reason why we have transit police or HSA transit police, I believe. I mean, I take the ICC and I see them quite often. I'm guessing what I'm trying to figure out is where's the data to support the need for putting cameras on the ICC versus what we have right now, which is transit police who are very visible and certainly patrol the ICC, east to west.
And if I may jump in on that, and it was there's a couple points there, one of which I made at the hearing last night, and that is that under the Hogan administration, the positions within the Maryland Transportation Authority have been reduced dramatically. And in response to requests to the Transportation Authority to do speed enforcement, I have specifically spoken with the chief, who has indicated that their resources are very much limited. They have come out on 1 or 2 occasions to do enforcement. And the volume of the tickets, and I had the statistics, I don't have them on me at the moment. The numbers were astronomical, even by the chief's admission to the number of tickets they issued. And in addition to that, they found stolen vehicles, drugs in cars when they were doing this. But that was on 2 occasions during the course of the summer that they actually did this. I can tell you, I got on the ICC at just about one end, the Gaithersburg exit Shady Grove, on my motorcycle this morning as I rode into my office and rode all the way to the New Hampshire Avenue exit. There was not a single Maryland Transportation Authority police officer there. That is more typical than not. There was a period of time where I agree with you when you would see quite a number of officers on the road. That has changed dramatically during the course of this administration. And the goal here is, okay, if you have robotic speed enforcement, we don't have to ask the Maryland Transportation Authority to utilize their strained resources. It would be great if they did. And that's what actually is the catalyst to this bill, because they said we don't have the human resources to give proper attention to speed control on the intercounty connector. So that was number one. Number two, your reference to, are we breaking new ground here? We are not. There have been bills that came in to allow Anne Arundel County to put them on roads there that before now were not permitted under the existing state law. As I mentioned at the start of this session, there was an article in the Baltimore Sun just yesterday or the day before about a law we passed in the legislature to allow speed cameras on I-83 in Baltimore, again, because they don't have the capacity for enforcement there. And the whole article was about how happy everybody in the Baltimore community surrounding where these will be installed were that it is finally happening. And we also had an instance in Prince George's County on Indian Head Highway, where their delegation came in, requested speed cameras on portions of Indian Head Highway. So we are certainly not breaking new ground. And I'll conclude by saying, when we passed the bill for Anne Arundel County just this past session, the president of the Senate looked down from the dais and he said, I think we may have an answer to the senators from District 14 and District 19 who have been experiencing the same problems that we heard in the debate tonight on the Intercounty Connector. So with that, all of my Senate colleagues came over and huddled and unanimously said, we would support this, at which point then we reached out to the other delegation members in the House in both 14 and 19, who also said, absolutely, we need this for our districts.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair, any further? Or are you good? Okay, thank you. Delegate Crutchfield?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Kramer, is it true that there are different posted speed limits on 200 versus 495?
Yes, the speed limit is higher currently on the Intercounty Connector.
Okay. And what research have you done that indicates that with the higher speeds, there are greater opportunities for fatalities and crashes? And maybe even Lieutenant Simkinski, am I correctly pronouncing your name, may have that data for us.
And real fast, there was an organization that testified last night that has done the research specific to the Intercounty Connector, I believe in conjunction with the Maryland Transportation Authority Police Department, because they've been working very closely with them on this issue. And the recommendations were specific to, yes, the introduction of the speed cameras does make a significant difference in reducing overall speed and accidents associated with speed.
Anything further, Delegate Crutchfield? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I can double check, I don't have anything from the county on this. Has the county taken a position on this bill?
I don't know whether that was asked of me, but Melanie, I think that's for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Melanie Wenger, Director of Government Relations for the county. The county executive, because Senator Kramer knows this, the way the bill came in, it was drafted in a problematic manner and didn't reflect what the sponsor, what Senator Kramer had intended. However, the county executive, I mean, we do know, what the intent of the bill was, and that was to place speed cameras to reduce the speeding on the ICC, and the county executive did support that concept. But the county council took this up a week or so ago or whatever, and also some issues with the drafting, a couple of questions that were raised by the staff about whether or not the existing cameras that are toll fixtures that could also be used for this, and the county council opted to hold the bill and discuss it further at a later time.
Thank you. So will you keep us posted as to that question about whether the existing tolling cameras can serve this function?
I had actually reached out to the Maryland Department of Transportation with a number of questions about the bill and thought that they were going to circle back with me, and that would have come up during that discussion, but I did not hear back from them. So yes, I could circle back with them again and also ask that question.
Great. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right, wonderful. Then I think we'll stop here on 2222. Sounds like we have some questions that need to be answered and some work to be done on the drafting. Melanie, if there were suggestions either from the council or from the county exec or from you based on some of the drafting challenges that you mentioned, if you could send those our way, I would appreciate it.
Can I jump in, Madam Chair, because I want to clarify what may be a little bit of confusion here. The bill was redrafted as it is before you. So
got it.
when it was first drafted, despite the fact I've been very clear, and trust me, it's been a real source of frustration for me that the drafter has continuously not been able to get what should be pretty simplistic drafting done. But yes, so Melanie brought to my attention a lot of the issues that came out of the original draft. It was redone completely to what you have before you. Even though it still isn't quite what I requested, I think, Melanie, we're in agreement that it's sufficient to accomplish the goal.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification, Senator. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. Enjoy your day.
You as well.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, we will move on to MC 1822. Again, we heard this just last night. Excellent presentation by our own Delegate Crutchfield. This is in the same posture as we passed it out of the House delegation unanimously. Delegate Crutchfield, do you have anything you want to add to your presentation from last night?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'm good.
Great. Anybody from the county want to add anything to that? Or do you all have any?
Just that we're in support.
Great. Great.
I'm sorry, Sarah Morningstar.
Thanks, Sarah. Members, do we have any questions? Delegate Gilchrist.
Sarah Morningstar. Is that county executive and county council?
Yes, Delegate. Both the county executive and county council support MC 1822.
It's really confusing. We have two Sarahs who spell their name the same.
I know that doesn't happen very often.
We spell it right whenever I'm on a call with
The others are all wrong.
Alfred.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion out there somewhere?
Move favorable on House Bill, someone help me,
1822.
1822, move favorable on House MC, right. 1822.
Second.
All those in favor? Awesome. It passes the committee unanimously. Love that. Thank you all. And then our final bill for today is MC 322. Another excellent presentation by Delegate Moon. I did have some questions for you, Delegate, just so you know. Is there anything you want to add to your presentation from last night?
I do actually. I think, unfortunately for members, this one probably is going to require some discussion. It's a little bit more of an involved topic than it would seem at first blush. And so let me just go back into the bill. It does two things, and I'll start with the simpler topic first. You will recall over the course of the last few years that we had a debate about lowering speed limits on certain roads in the county and cities within Montgomery County. And we finally passed a bill that allowed that for cities and the county on their roads. At the last second, a photo enforcement ban went onto that bill in the Senate, and we didn't have a chance to look at it without killing the bill, given the late timing of that amendment. And so some Vision Zero folks had asked us to revisit that ban now that we have more time. And so it caught my eye on the floor this past session that the photo enforcement debate was alive and well in other counties, but instead of banning cameras, what they did was in Anne Arundel and Baltimore, they included language that said the revenues raised by those cameras had to be used to improve those roads. In other words, to use the fines raised by the cameras to make the road safer. And so I drafted up language to parallel the Baltimore and Anne Arundel language that would say just for these lowered roads, that if a city or county determines that it's warranted to lower the speed limit there, and at some point feels there's an enforcement issue, that they would at least have, it wouldn't be illegal for them to do this so long as they follow the conditions, that other counties are beginning to impose to require that money to be spent to actually make the road safer. I offer this also just as a policy matter for the committee, that the more I turn these photo enforcement issues around in my head, we really ought to just take the bull by the horns and tackle this issue. There are segments of the public that are deeply skeptical and don't like them. But again, I think the more confidence we can give that the spending is towards these Vision Zero goals and things like that, and that we're being responsible and thoughtful in law about this, that's useful. So that's the policy question. I think it's pretty simple. Do we want to revisit the speed camera ban that was put in by the Senate late in session this year? And if so, I'm offering language that would allow it, but only if the locality is spending that money to improve the road. And I will tell you, we have a huge shortage of sidewalk and crosswalk and striping and hawk signal money. So I offer this as something that might have some merit. All right. So
Wait.
the more, oh yes, sorry.
If you can stop right there. Because
Okay, let's pause on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to check in with Delegate Gilchrist, because we have rules in ENT, and actually the funding is a pretty important one, that it can't be paid to a local jurisdiction except to cover the cost of implementing the program, and revenues above the cost may only be used to address unduly hazardous conditions. So I'm somewhat surprised that we don't have that already. Delegate Gilchrist, can you help me out here?
So you're saying under current law, revenues from cameras, what?
So we have standard rules in ENT that the committee laid out when we allow speed cameras. And Delegate Moon pointed out that other jurisdictions, the city, Anne Arundel, have that in code, and it looks like we don't.
I don't know, I don't know the answer to your question, Sarah.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Calvin, let's follow up on that, because you're absolutely right, Delegate Moon. That's important, and that's one of the.
It could be that our code on this predates some of that photo enforcement language. I mean, I remember sitting on the floor hearing the floor debates on some of it, so it could just be that it's more recent.
Right. Well, that's a really good point. I'm glad you picked up on that, because like I said, that is a key pillar of when ENT will approve cameras. So putting the revenue piece aside, because I absolutely agree with that. Well, actually, I shouldn't put that aside unless everybody's okay with putting that aside. Anybody want to talk about that anymore? Okay. So the piece about getting rid of the ban on cameras where we have decreased the speed limit. Are there any comments, discussion on that? Okay. Delegate Moon, you may proceed with the other part of the bill.
Got it. Okay, so here's the thornier part of the bill. It relates to school bus cameras, and in particular, what I call the opposite lane scenario. And I just want to read to you Montgomery County Office of Legislative Oversight, the OLO report on this from 2020, and just their description of the state of law. Maryland law requires all traffic to stop when a school bus's stop arm is extended, except for cars on the opposite side divided by a median. And so it's this, so essentially by law, the school bus camera law says that the road is safe for the kids if there's a median, and unsafe if it's not. In other words, everyone's got to stop to let them cross if there's not a median. And so In 2014, this program began as a pilot with 25 buses, and by 2016, it was a countywide contract. The way the revenue worked, they had to pay the vendor back before you start to see any money come through. And I think that was something like $18 million. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then after some discussion and modification, there's now a 60-40 split of any revenues on top of that, 60 to the vendor, 40 to the county. And of the county's 40%, 90% is for MCPS and 10% for the county. So obviously the school bus routes are selected by MCPS in consultation with others. The enforcement is managed by the police, and the law was created by us. And the roads that are the ones generating these tickets are state highways often, not county roads. So this is a huge mess, in my humble opinion. The revenues are going to people different than the people managing, running, operating, controlling the roads, and necessarily having choice over where these school buses are in the first place. And I just want to caution everyone, I'll cut to the chase here. The county is developing a very sensible plan to address some of this, and it includes a range of things that I'll talk about. But I just want to wrap your head around the very basic problem here about this 8-lane scenario. I looked at data. I'm a data person. So just so you get a sense of numbers, this thing went countywide on every school bus in September of 2019. So not too long ago. And the pandemic disrupted that. Nevertheless, even with the shortened pandemic year, we had 87,830 photo tickets from school buses last year. It was 54,000 the year before that, 33,000 the year before that. So this is a huge amount of people getting these. The tickets are $250, okay? And so throughout the program from 2016 to 2019, before we went countywide, there were 93,000 tickets. 50% of those were opposite lane drivers, and the other 50% were from people behind the bus, in other words, or on the same side, who really ought to know better. Why did I get involved in this issue? In 2019, Bethesda Magazine highlighted specific bus stops that were generating these tickets. And I noticed that 3 of the top 4 they cited were in District 20, Long Branch and downtown Silver Spring. So I said, my God, are my people awful and not stopping for school buses, or is something else going on? And this is when I learned about the opposite lane driving law that we created, that we voted on. And I looked at the numbers. The 8800 block of Piney Branch Road. This is near where the apartment building exploded. It has terrible sidewalks, poor infrastructure. It's a heavy immigrant population. That's one of the top 4 fine locations in Montgomery County. 1,467 violations there. That's $366,000 in fine amounts. 80% of those were opposite lane drivers. Downtown Silver Spring, 8800 block of Colesville Road. There were 3,700 violations. That's $927,000 in fines from one school bus in downtown Silver Spring. I took a look at the satellite image, same thing. It's an 8-lane scenario. 89% of those tickets were from the opposite lane drivers. And so I started asking questions in 2019. What should we do about this? And some people said, move the stops. They don't need to be on the big road. And that maybe that's appropriate, maybe it's not. I can't comment on that. But one thing that popped out at me is that you don't have this problem, and I would argue wealthier parts of the county where the infrastructure has been better taken care of over the years, because they have a median throughout the road. And they're missing. And I've done safety walks with State Highway on some of these corridors. I just got back from one, actually. Delegate Wilkins here was on it with me. And missing medians all throughout, and State Highway admits it, says they don't have the money for it. So when I see $900,000, $300,000, $500,000 being generated in fine revenue from, oftentimes drivers who are being surprised by being in lane 8, and that this isn't happening in Bethesda or Rockville Pike because they have a median there, I think it's an interesting policy conundrum. And I want us to think about why that infrastructure, safety infrastructure, doesn't exist there, rather than just sort of sweep it under the rug by saying, we're going to move the stop and go with an easy fix like that, which frankly may punish the families that live in the apartment towers, the dozens of them who have to move a little bit further every morning because we don't want to pay to make the road safer over there. And I just put that out there. That's what I was trying to do. That's why I put this bill in. I have satellite images if you want to see what I'm talking about. It truly is confusing. And I think if you were on these roads at the wrong time, you could easily get hit with one of these tickets. And so it can't be the case that if we see these same numbers next year, we say, well, that's okay, we're ticketing people. Because that was sort of the response I got last time. I don't want to leave students in a scenario where every year there's 3,000 cars blowing by and not stopping for them when they're trying to disboard the bus. So that's the policy goal. I'm really happy to answer any questions. And I'll just say the county's plan, as they've put it forward, I'll read you what I have here, and they're happy to elaborate, but improved signage and marking, potentially reducing the financial impact of a first offense so that drivers learn the law before being penalized. And in fact, they did share with me data that indicates when people get one of these $250 tickets, they are not likely to get another one. It's probably because it stings so much. Changing the citations to include multiple languages. Again, some of these are heavy immigrant driving populations, and it's a confusing law. A commitment to track the information differently and come together on a regular basis moving forward to examine trends in the program. Consider regular coordination between MCPS, MCDOT, MCPD, SHA to discuss school bus locations to optimize safety. Hyper-local education about school bus laws, and then the potential to move the bus stops and long-term look at capital projects for safety. So that's what they got. And we also are consulting with county attorney and such about whether state law changes are needed to make some of these happen. For example, if we did a warning on first offense or lowered the first offense amount or did something on these tricky scenarios, would that require a change in law? And again, we do have to figure out this financing for these more expensive median treatments because I think we all know no one wants to pay for it and the money's not coming from somewhere else. So I'll shut up there, answer any questions, and leave you with this thought. We created this beast, and I think the land use subcommittee in Montgomery County is going to have to take it upon itself on an annual basis to provide a quasi oversight role until such time, and just look at data on an annual basis at this program until such time as it's consolidated in some way and not sitting in a 6 or 7 agency model. That's my closing thought. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Delegate Moon. Does anyone from the county have anything to add? Okay. Do we have any questions, comments from members? Delegate Gilchrist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Danielle Suskin, I see you're here from the public schools. So when a school bus stops on Colesville Road, and I'm thinking now of like when they let students off the bus in the afternoon, are some of those students expected to actually cross the 8 lanes while the bus is sitting there?
Danielle, we can't hear you.
Your mic may be deactivated even if your Zoom is not on mute. on your computer.
It may
feel
just
like I
be
can
the volume.
I think I can hear you very lightly. Can you unmute and turn the volume up? I felt like I heard you say something. Oh, very, very low.
Your screen tells me you're on mute now.
Delegate Gilchrist, your question was, are the kids, and Danielle, while you're still figuring out your microphone, and Hannah might be able to weigh in as well. But what your question was, are the kids then crossing the street? Was that your question?
Yeah, just sort of, basics about school stops. So I'm thinking of the afternoon, kids are being let off the bus. The stop arm goes out from the bus. Are some of those kids actually expected to cross the 8 lanes, median or not?
As I understand it, and Hannah, you might be able to weigh in on this too, since we can't hear Danielle, but as I understand it, no, it's called like same side pick up and drop off or something. There you go. Where, yeah, the kids are being picked up on the side where they're supposed to be getting picked up. I think the issue is apparently then the bus will then travel down the road and then like loop back and go back the other way in some cases. And so you could have occasions where the kids could then, they miss it on the one side, so they then will attempt to zip across the street. But technically they're not supposed to be doing that, but you may not be successful with a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old kid zipping across the street. But Hannah, is there anything you want to add to that?
And so I suppose if there's a median, how would we know if that really affects the safe? I mean, I understand it's in state law, but does the median really affect the safety of the students?
So our understanding from our traffic engineers at the Department of Transportation and also from Wade Holland, who oversees our Vision Zero program, are that it depends. And that's something that's tricky about this legislation, is that in general, well, the Vision Zero approach is to take a context sensitive look at every location and not to avoid a broad brush solution, which is why one of the reasons why the police and schools and DOT have come together in response to this bill to see how we can look at these things from context sensitive. But in some cases, so the medians, where they're in place, they certainly protect cars from each other traveling in opposite directions. There may be cases where a median makes it safer for a pedestrian, but our Division of Traffic Chief shared with us that in some cases, the median can give a false sense of security for pedestrians to make them feel like it's actually okay to cross there, a false sense of a protected refuge, and can be more dangerous in certain instances. And that's where the context sensitive consideration comes up.
Right.
And Delegate, if I can just clarify too, this school bus section of law was drafted with a hammer in mind, as it was drafted knowing that we would be chiseling away into something manageable. And that's why I just wanted to explain the policy context for why I was flagging the medians in the language, because it's a unique scenario where the offense itself can actually finance into existence its theoretical safety solution. Again, just because state law says you're not going to get a ticket in that scenario. And so I will throw out to you on the complexity of this that the way, on the road you're barking down, another approach would be to say, you're right, that's confusing. Let's change the law to get rid of the median exception and just say, if there's a school bus, no matter what's going on, all cars stop. And actually, the public education is far simpler on that. But again, you really need to sort of wrap your head around what the engineering and median should or shouldn't be there, and what's actually safer. And that's why, to the Vision Zero folks' point, I wrote this thing as a hammer, but I think a more context sensitive solution is going to be warranted. And each of the top 10 sites, even the three within District 20 that I flagged, are very different, and some of them have retail abutting them, some of them don't. So they're just different contexts. And so I just want to flag the principle, just as with the photo enforcement on speeds amendments that I'm suggesting, that we begin to bend these programs into using or directing, or at least using the data from these programs to drive engineering and safety decisions, rather than just take the money, and only look at the success of the program through recidivism. That's just one of the dimensions. We should be looking at crash data, pedestrian and bike collisions, and things of that nature. A more holistic Vision Zero driven approach, and that's so I think the county's plan gets there, but somehow I just don't want to let us off the hook of being unwilling to invest in the actual physical infrastructure that would, I know, reduce some of these fines and make these places safer, when the numbers we're talking about being generated per location here are actually, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and their SHA is telling me they can't afford safety upgrades.
And Madam Chair, I suppose one other thing, just, Sarah Morningstar, where is the county on this bill?
We were on we need more information, and we were grateful for Delegate Moon bringing this forward. Honestly, it's created a lot of discussion among the school system, the police department, and DOT, and frankly, we've got to be pulling in SHA as well. So we held back because we just needed more information. I think we've gotten the group together. And there is a proposal which Delegate Moon has looked at. So we've come to the table, but everybody agrees that there's got to be collaboration. I mean, frankly, I think everybody was kind of surprised that the school system was picking, locations, and the police weren't there, and DOT wasn't there, and it was on state roads. And so we have a group, and we're grateful for that. Very long-winded answer of, we didn't take a position on the bill yet.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Danielle, did you want to say something now that we have you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I just wanted to say two things. Thank you, Sarah, for helping. We just got a new computer system, and I don't know why it didn't work. However, the answer is yes. As she said, we are curbside. Our buses turn around, so we never expect kids to cross the street. That being said, one of the most recent cases we had, a kid missed the bus on his side of the street, tried to run across the street to catch the bus on the other side, and was hit by a car. So just because we do it that way doesn't mean that they don't try to cross the street. MCPS, actually, the board did initially take a position on this bill, which was to support the bill. From our perspective, our initial perspective, it was a safety concern. We're always, we're always in favor of keeping the kids safe. I want to point out, Delegate Moon said we get 90% of the 60% that goes to the county. We are just a pass-through agency. We do not keep that money. It goes to the police department, so it passes through us. We actually don't make any revenue. At least this is what my folks told me when I went and asked what our fiscal note would be on this. So I think that's important. I think we are part of this team and working together with Delegate Moon on, whether it's a legislative or a non-legislative fix. Our concerns are around obviously not giving up autonomy on where our bus stops are and how they get moved. We are responsible for that. But we're willing to have those conversations. There are in the list currently, there are a few that we think could potentially be moved. There's at least one we know cannot be moved. Delegate Moon requested some data on bus stops with more than, with multi-direction traffic without medians.
We have over 7,000 bus stops, Delegate Moon. We are working to see, we don't have that. We'd have to look at every bus stop and see. So we kind of have some general ideas, but we don't have that exact data. However, our Director of Transportation is working on this and is part of the team. So again, my apologies, my volume didn't work.
It's all good. We're glad you got it back. I see that we're coming up on the hour, and I know I actually have a hard stop at 2. I think this is a really good discussion. Delegate Moon, you have hit on something really important, and you've sparked great conversations. So thank you for noticing that, being on top of that, bringing that to us. Does anybody have anything else before we close out? Great. Well, to be continued on MC 323. Thank you everyone so much for your time today, and we'll see you